The hall was silent, large, and filled with golden light. Princess Kayla of the Varelian Empire stood tall and proud in her ceremonial armor. Her long silver cape dragging over the crystal floor, her deep blue skin shimmered with authority, and her glowing eyes scanned the group of humans before her. She didn't trust them, not yet, not ever. Jason, a young human translator with messy hair and nervous eyes, stood near the edge of the room. Holding the newest neural translator in his palm, it was shaped like a glowing orb, floating just above his wrist. His job was simple: make sure nothing was misunderstood between the two species. But Jason had never worked with royalty before, especially not one like Kayla. Kayla spoke something in her sharp alien tongue. A mix of hisses and tones, the translator orb glowed, then projected the words in perfect English. "We accept your presence, humans, but speak with care," it said. Jason nodded and responded, "Thank you, Princess Kayla. We come in peace and with honor. So far, so good." But then, something strange happened. One of the Varelian guards stepped forward and whispered something into Kayla's ear. She laughed quietly, then turned her head and replied. Jason noticed the orb glowed slightly, but didn't speak. It was silent. Strange. Jason thought, tapping it lightly. The orb flickered, then caught up and said loudly, "I accept your proposal for mating." The room froze. The humans gasped. The Varelian guards looked stunned. Some dropped to one knee. Others grabbed their ceremonial weapons. Jason blinked, confused. "Wait, what?" Kayla's eyes went wide, her face burning with violet blush. She looked around, then stared at Jason like he had just insulted her bloodline. "I said, prepare for my escort." She shouted to the orb, but it translated again as, "I wish to be taken tonight." Jason stepped back. No, this isn't right. I didn't say anything." But it was too late. The Varelian culture was strict, very strict. A public mating proposal, even if made by accident, had to be honored unless denied instantly. But Kayla had hesitated, even for a moment. That moment sealed it. Jason was suddenly surrounded by guards, but not with weapons raised. Instead, they bowed to him. The ritual must proceed. One of them said he is to be escorted to the princess's chamber before moonfall. Wait, what ritual? What chamber? Jason shouted, panicking. Kayla looked furious, but she didn't speak. She couldn't, not in front of her people. Her honor was tangled in this mess. Jason tried to stop everything, but no one listened. Two guards gently placed their hands on his shoulders and led him through the golden hall. He kept looking back at Kayla, who stood still like a statue. Her fists clenched, her face unreadable. Inside the royal tower, Jason was brought to a large room lit by soft floating crystals. Alien symbols glowed on the walls. The guards left him there, alone. The door opened a few minutes later, and Kayla walked in slowly, closing the door behind her with a soft metallic hiss. She didn't speak at first, just stared at him in silence. Jason raised his hands. "Listen, princess, this is all a big mistake." She walked toward him, slow and graceful. "Do you think this is a joke?" "No." The translator messed up. "I didn't propose anything." Kayla's eyes narrowed. "But you accepted, publicly." "I didn't know what was being said. It wasn't even my voice." There was a long pause. Kayla stepped even closer, standing just inches from him. "Do you know what this means?" She whispered, "If I don't complete the ritual tonight, I will be shamed. My clan will lose honor. I could be exiled." Jason shook his head, heart racing. "But I didn't mean for this. I swear." Kayla stared at him for a long time, then turned and activated a console on the wall. It showed the translator logs. Jason walked over and looked. There it was, clear and blinking. Her words, "Prepare my escort." Translation: I accept your proposal for mating. Jason looked at her slowly. So, it was your words, not mine. Kayla's jaw tightened. She didn't deny it, but she didn't look proud either. The translator failed. She said, but the law does not care about errors. A silence fell between them. Only the hum of crystals in the background. Then Kayla whispered, I can kill you and claim it was misunderstanding, or I can go through with it, complete the bond, and protect my name. Jason froze. You're giving me a choice. She nodded. Choose carefully. Human, your decision shapes both our futures. The room dimmed as the twin moons rose outside the window, and Jason realized this wasn't just about a machine failure. This was about two species, two lives, and a single, broken sentence that changed everything. Jason didn't sleep. Not even for a second. He sat on the edge of the smooth crystal bench, hands locked together, breathing fast. The royal chamber was quiet now, but his heartbeat was loud, pounding like a drum. Across the room, Kayla stood with her back to him, staring out the tall window as the twin moons hung low in the alien sky. Her silver cape had been folded and placed aside, her shoulders bare, glowing faintly under the pale moonlight. Neither of them spoke, but the silence was heavy. Jason kept replaying everything. Over and over, the device failed. Words got twisted, and now he was stuck between honor and humiliation. But so was she. Kayla finally turned around, her expression unreadable. Her hands were at her sides, not angry, not relaxed, just still. Human, she said softly, the translator now perfectly working again. You're not what I expected, Jason swallowed. Is that good or bad? I haven't decided, she answered, walking toward him slowly. He stood up, still unsure what to say. He was a translator, not a warrior, not a diplomat, definitely not someone trained in alien customs of this kind. Kayla stopped just in front of him, her voice low. I should be furious. I should call my guards and end this, but I can't. Why not? Jason asked carefully. Because, she said. You looked at me with confusion, not hunger. Jason blinked. I didn't understand what was happening. Exactly, she said. And something in her voice softened. You weren't using the mistake to your advantage. He looked into her eyes, trying to read them, but her face was like carved glass, beautiful, sharp, and closed. Kayla stepped past him, opened a drawer, and pulled out a glowing crystal slate. She pressed it, and a screen floated in the air between them. It showed the old legal code of the Varelian Empire. Jason watched as Kayla highlighted. A law in bright gold. Section 47, she said. If a mating vow is declared and not denied within 3 heartbeats, it is considered binding. No correction or translation excuse may override this. Jason stared, so it really doesn't matter what was intended? No, she replied, only what was heard. They were both quiet again. Jason could feel the weight of it all now. The translator had failed, but the law didn't care. He could run, maybe hide, but that wouldn't help her. Her honor was now tied to his, whether either of them liked it or not. Kayla sat down on a velvet platform, resting her arms on her legs. There's one way out, she said, not looking at him. I can exile myself, say I dishonored my title. Jason stepped forward. You'd lose your crown. Yes, she said, but you'd be free. He looked down, thinking everything inside him screamed to just walk away. But then he looked at her again, not as a princess or an alien, but as someone stuck in the same trap. Jason sat beside her, just close enough to feel her heat but not touch her. What if we didn't escape it, he said. What if we just faced it together, at least for now? She turned her head slowly, eyes locking with his. You'd accept the bond? I don't know what that means yet, Jason said honestly, but I know what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean using someone else's mistake to ruin a life. A silence stretched between them again. But this time, it wasn't cold. Kella's hand moved slightly toward his. Not touching, just near. I don't trust easily, she whispered. You don't have to trust me, Jason said. Just let me prove I'm not the villain your laws think I am. Kayla stood and walked away without answering. She opened the inner door to her private chamber and paused at the edge. Then she looked over her shoulder, her voice low. Come, Jason. Followed slowly, unsure. The room beyond was warm, lit by golden orbs that floated like tiny suns. There were no guards now, no advisors, no laws, just them. Kayla walked to a round platform at the center, kneeling in a ritual stance. Her hands glowed faintly. Placed over her chest, Jason stood at the edge of the circle. Heart beat loud again. If we begin, she said, eyes closed, we cannot stop. Not until the ritual completes are you ready to carry that weight. Jason didn't speak for a long time. Then he stepped into the circle. Kayla opened her eyes. And for the first time, she didn't look like a princess. She looked like a woman. And the translator didn't say a word. The golden ritual circle pulsed softly beneath their feet. Jason could feel the warmth through his boots, like the ground was breathing, alive. Kayla knelt with calm stillness, but her eyes burned with something heavy, something that didn't match her cool voice. No guards, no laws, no translator, just breath, just decision. Jason stood in silence. Unsure how to begin, Kayla finally broke it. Speaking quietly in her native tongue, the words flowed around him, beautiful and alien. The translator device still. Floating near the chamber wall remained quiet. Jason had turned it off. They had both agreed. No more machines between them tonight. Kayla's voice slowed, and she looked up, searching his face for a reaction. Jason knelt down beside her, meeting her gaze. I don't understand all your words, he said, but I can feel what they mean. She didn't smile, but her face softened. She leaned forward slightly and touched her forehead to his not a kiss. Not yet, just contact. In her culture, that meant trust. In his, it meant closeness. The room stayed silent. Then Kayla leaned back and spoke again, this time carefully. She was trying English, broken but clear enough. Jason, she said slowly. Why? You accept risk. He breathed slowly, because I see you. Not just the crown. Her brows lifted slightly. As if surprised, then she stood and crossed the chamber. Picking up a small glowing cube from a floating shelf, she placed it in his hands. Jason looked. Down there was text appearing inside it, moving like smoke. He couldn't read it. What is it? Ah, he asked. Contract, she said. Bonding ritual, half blood. Half soul, Jason hesitated. It's legal, she nodded. If you touch it with your skin and speak. It's done. Jason stared at the cube, heart pounding. So this was it. No going back. No court would undo it. The mistake made by a broken device would become a truth sealed forever. Kayla sat again, watching him carefully, not forcing, not pressuring, just watching, waiting. Jason didn't move yet. Instead, he asked quietly, Kayla, what does this bond mean to you? Her eyes flickered with thought. Then she said something long in her language. He waited for her to explain, and she did, slowly. It means, I will never call another, she said. I protect you. I choose you. Even in shame, Jason looked at her, beneath all the armor and anger. He saw a woman who had been forced into a situation she never wanted. Just like him, but unlike him, she stood to lose everything: her power, her name, her people's respect, and she was still offering him a way in, not out. In, Jason took a breath. He touched the cube, felt its warmth, but he didn't speak the words yet. I'll do it, he said slowly, but only if you want this too. Kella's face showed something new, something unsure. She stepped closer, slowly, One hand reached up and brushed his hair from his face. I do not. No, she whispered. But I do not want you gone, and that was enough. Jason pressed the cube to his chest. The light flared, pulsing blue and violet. The contract accepted his heartbeat, and Kayla reached forward, doing the same, a shared pulse. The cube dissolved into soft light, disappearing between them. Kayla took a step back on her wrist. A faint glowing mark formed, shaped like a curve and aligned ancient symbols. Jason looked at his arm and saw the same mark appear. He felt something shift deep in his chest, a strange warmth filling his body like a memory he'd never had before. Kayla stared at the marks, then at him. It is done, she said quietly. Then her lips twitched, almost into a smile. Now comes the part not written in law. Jason blinked. And what's that? Kayla tilted her head, her long hair sliding over her shoulder. You learn how Varelian bride sleeps. She took his hand, and for once, there were no mistakes, no machines, no mistranslation, only choice, only her. Asterisk, the soft hum of the bonding ritual faded, but the heat it left behind stayed. Jason stood quietly as Kayla's hand slipped from his. Her fingers had lingered just long enough to say something unspoken. The glowing mark on his wrist was still warm, pulsing gently with his heartbeat. The same mark glowed on Kayla's skin, just beneath the edge of her shoulder strap. Outside, the twin moons drifted higher, casting shadows through the tall crystal windows. Inside, the air was thick with tension, not danger, but something new, something fragile. Kayla walked to the side chamber and dimmed the lights with a gesture. Golden orbs sank into the walls, and only a few pale glows remained. Like starlight across the room, Jason didn't move. He didn't want to break the silence with words too small for the moment. Kayla turned back to him, but she looked different. Now, not in appearance, her strong frame, proud posture, and glowing skin were the same. But something in her eyes had changed. She wasn't holding the crown anymore. She was just Kayla. She reached behind her and removed a silver clasp, letting the last piece of armor fall to the floor with a soft metallic sound. She wasn't ashamed. Not she, just watchful, waiting to see if Jason would flinch or stare. He did neither. Instead, he sat quietly on the edge of the low platform, his voice calm. You still don't have to go through with this. Kayla raised an eyebrow. I already have, she said, pointing to the glowing mark on her wrist. But this, she added, walking toward him slowly, this is different. Jason stood, slowly. I don't want to be a burden on your life, he said. Kayla looked him over, then said softly, then don't be. She reached out and pressed her hand to his chest. Right over the mark. Be something more. Jason hesitated. Like what? She leaned closer. My first honest bond. He couldn't answer. Not with words, so he didn't. Kayla stepped back and walked toward the sleep chamber beyond the curtain. She paused at the doorway, her voice low but steady in Varelian. Custom, the first night must be shared, even if nothing happens. Jason looked confused. Why? She glanced over her shoulder to let our souls adjust to each other's presence. Jason followed her through the curtain. The room beyond was not like anything he had seen. Floating cushions, walls that changed color with breath, and a bed made from glowing strands woven between two hovering arcs. Kayla climbed into the bed with fluid grace, folding her legs beneath her and patting the space beside her. Jason sat down carefully, unsure where to put his hands or how to breathe without making things weird. Kayla tilted her head. You are very tense. Jason exhaled. Yeah, well, my translator got me married. And now I'm sharing a bed with a warrior princess who could snap me in half. Kayla blinked. Snap you? Jason laughed nervously. Sorry, Earth phrase. It means I'm nervous, not scared. Kayla slowly leaned against his shoulder. I have never laid beside anyone like this. not even during the ceremonial trials. Jason looked down at her silver hair resting near his arm. Not even once. Varelian bonds are chosen by politics, she said, not heart. Jason didn't know what to say to that, so he simply leaned back, letting the silence carry the weight. Minutes passed, maybe more. Kella's breathing slowed, and her head dropped gently to his chest. Her fingers found his hand and held it not tight, just enough to know it was real. Jason looked up at the ceiling. Watching as tiny lights danced above them like constellations, he whispered into the air, "I never planned this." Kayla murmured something in her language, soft and sleepy. The translator, still shut off, remained silent, but Jason didn't need it anymore. He knew what she meant, and for the first time since this strange mistake began, he felt like maybe it wasn't a mistake at all, part for complete. The first light of dawn crept through the crystal walls, soft and golden. Jason opened his eyes slowly, unsure where he was for a moment. Then he remembered the ritual, the bond. Kella's hand resting in his. She was still asleep, her breathing slow, peaceful, no armor, no crown, just her. Jason studied her face quietly, noticing things he hadn't before. The way her eyelashes shimmered faintly, the tiny scar near her temple, the way her lips curled slightly even in sleep. This wasn't the Kayla who had stood like a statue in the grand hall. This was someone else, someone real. He shifted a little, trying not to wake her, but her hand gripped his gently. "Don't move," she whispered, eyes still closed. "I wasn't going far," he said softly. Kayla opened her eyes slowly, blinking. "At the morning light, I forgot how bright it gets this early," she said, rubbing her face. Jason smiled. "You sleep like a human." Kayla smirked. "I doubt it." There was a brief moment of peace between them, calm and fragile. Then, without warning, a loud chime echoed through the chamber. Jason sat up, startled. Kella's expression turned cold in an instant. "It's the council's signal," she said, voice hardening. Jason stood, confused. "Council." She got out of bed and grabbed her ceremonial robe, throwing it over her shoulders. "If they've called for us this early, it means trouble." Jason followed her into the main room. What kind of trouble? Kayla tapped a control panel, and a screen floated in the air. An official message blinked across it, written in sharp royal script. Jason couldn't read it, but the tone was clear, urgent, cold, commanding. Kayla turned to him. "They want us in the Hall of Proofs. Now." Jason frowned. "Why?" "We followed the ritual." Kayla looked down. "Not everyone wants peace, Jason. There are those who believe a human Varelian bond is a threat." He swallowed hard. "And if they reject it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked toward a storage chest and opened it, pulling out a long blade forged with glowing runes. She attached it to her waist. Jason watched her. "Do I need a weapon too?" Kayla looked at him for a moment, then shook her head. "No, just stay close to me. Speak only when asked. And whatever happens, don't show fear." He tried to nod confidently, but the truth was his stomach was tight. With nerves, yesterday he was just a translator. Today, he was a political symbol. Maybe even a problem. They walked side by side through the tall halls. Servants bowed. Guards moved out of the way. But not everyone looked happy. Whispers followed them. Some eyes filled with curiosity, others with quiet hatred when they reached the Hall of Proofs. Jason saw the massive council already seated in their curved thrones. Every elder wore silver robes, their eyes glowing with data feeds. At the center of the room stood the High Lawkeeper, an old Varelian woman with hair like woven metal and eyes that never blinked. She raised her hand. "Princess Kayla," she said, "you have committed the bond with a non-Varelian male." Kayla stood tall. "I have," the Lawkeeper's voice. Stayed flat, and was it by willing choice? Kayla glanced at Jason, then looked back. It began by error, but I accepted the bond with full awareness. Jason could feel the air tighten around him. The lawkeeper turned her gaze to him. Human, do you understand the meaning of your actions? Jason stepped forward. I didn't, at first, but I do now. I didn't plan this. But I won't dishonor her or the bond we share. A soft murmur passed through the elders. The lawkeeper stared into his eyes. Then, by ancient law, your lives are now linked. Jason exhaled, but before he could relax, one of the council members stood. He slammed his staff on the ground. I call for challenge, he said, voice full of venom. This union is a mockery. I demand proof of the humans. Worth, Jason froze. Keela's expression turned sharp and dangerous. You dare question my choice, she said, her voice like a blade. He is untested, the elder snapped. Let him prove himself in the trial of earth and flame, Jason whispered. What's that? Keela's jaw clenched. It's a combat trial. Jason blinked. Wait. Like a real fight? With me. The lawkeeper raised her hand again. The challenge is accepted, she said. It begins at dusk. Jason looked at Kayla. Tell me this is a joke. But she didn't answer. She only reached out and touched his wrist, right where the mark glowed under his skin. Her voice was soft but serious. You became mine by mistake, she said. But now they want to take you from me by force, Jason's. Breath caught in his throat, and in that moment he knew everything was about to get worse. Asterisk, the sky turned red orange as dusk fell over the Varelian capital. Jason stood in the center of the trial arena, his boots sinking slightly into the cracked earth. He looked up at the giant stone pillars surrounding him, ancient and scarred from countless duels. He was sweating, and not just from the heat. His heart was racing. Across the arena stood his opponent, a massive Varelian challenger named Korvac, 8 feet tall and built like a tank. His skin was dark as obsidian, marked with glowing war tattoos. Jason whispered under his breath, "This is insane," on the raised platform above. Kayla watched in silence. She wore ceremonial armor, again, but this time, it wasn't for show. Her eyes never left Jason. Jason had no weapon, no armor, only instinct and desperation. He turned to the lawkeeper, who stood at the edge. "Can I at least have a stick?" he asked, voice dry. The lawkeeper didn't smile. "Your will is your weapon, your mind, your shield." Jason muttered, "Great, I'm dead." A gong sounded deep and echoing. The trial had begun. Korvac charged with terrifying speed, the ground shaking under each step. Jason barely rolled to the side, hitting the dirt hard as the alien's fist slammed into the ground where he stood seconds before. He scrambled up, coughing dust. Korvac turned and charged again, faster this time. Jason ran not bravely. Just to survive, he ducked under a low beam and used the ruins as cover. The arena wasn't just a circlet, was a maze of jagged rocks, old weapons, and fire pits. Kayla leaned forward slightly, her hand gripping the edge of the platform. She whispered to herself, "Don't die, Jason." Jason slid down a slope, twisting his ankle slightly. Pain shot through him, but he didn't stop. His breath came fast, sharp. "This is your proof." He shouted toward the judges, "You want me to die just to show I care about her?" Korvac dropped down behind him. Jason turned and barely avoided a punch that would have shattered his ribs. He reached for anything his hand closed around a broken spear handle. It wasn't sharp, but it was something. He swung wildly, hitting Korvac across the side of the face. The big alien stumbled, surprised. Jason didn't stop. He kept swinging, not with skill, but with everything he had. One blow hit the arm, another scraped the leg. Then Korvac caught the spear and snapped it in half. Jason fell backward, winded. Korvac lifted him by the front of his shirt and growled, "You are weak, little man." Jason coughed. "Yeah, well, I'm still here," before Korvac could slam him into the ground. Jason twisted hard and kicked the alien's knee. Korvac roared and dropped him. Jason landed on his side and rolled away. Grabbing a shard of metal from the dirt, he stood, panting. Holding the jagged piece like a dagger, "Come on then," he whispered. "You want proof. I'll bleed for her." Korvac roared again and charged, but Jason didn't run. He stood his ground. Knees shaking, hand tight on the metal at the last second. He threw the shard knot at Korvac's butt at a weak spot above the fire pit beside. The shard hit the control rod and a burst of flame shot out. Korvac flinched and stumbled straight into the pit. The flames didn't kill him, but they burned across his side. He dropped to the ground. Moaning in pain, Jason collapsed too. Barely breathing, the lawkeeper stood. Raising her hand, the human stands, the challenger falls. The crowd was silent, then slowly. A few began to clap, the sound strange and hesitant, but it grew. Jason lay on his back, staring at the sky. He didn't smile, he didn't cheer, he just whispered, "I did it." Kayla rushed down from the platform and dropped to her knees beside him. "You idiot," she said. "Eyes wide, you're bleeding." He looked at her and laughed weakly. "Is that your way of saying thank you?" Kayla shook her head. "No. That's my way of saying you're mine." Jason reached up, touched her face. "I thought I already was," and for once, the translator didn't need to say anything. The victory should have ended it. Jason had survived the trial of earth and flame. Korvac lay in the healer's tent, burned but alive, defeated in front of the whole council. The law was clear. The bond was real. The challenge had been answered. But peace never comes so easily. Kayla stood beside Jason as they walked back into the royal hall. His arm wrapped in temporary bandage. His steps slow but steady, whispers followed them. Some respectful, some angry. The elders had accepted the result, but not all of Aurelia would. Inside her private chambers, Jason collapsed onto a soft bench, breathing hard. Kayla poured him water from a glowing container and handed it over. He took it without a word. Drinking deep, then he looked at her. "I'm still alive," he said, trying to smile. Kayla sat across from him. "For now," she said quietly. Jason frowned. "What does that mean?" Kayla lowered her eyes. "They fear what we are, Jason, not because of what you did, but because of what it represents." He sat up straighter. "You mean us? The bond?" She nodded. "They think I've betrayed my people." Jason looked. At her wrist, where the glowing mark still shimmered faintly, he touched his own. "They can't break this, can they?" "No," Kayla said, "but they can make us suffer for it." Just then, a soft alert echoed through the chamber. Kayla tapped the screen on the wall, and her expression changed instantly. Jason walked over. "What is it?" "A broadcast." She said, "Empire-wide." The screen came alive with the face of Kella's father, the Emperor himself. His golden eyes were cold, his voice sharp. "Let it be known," he said. "The bond between my daughter and the human male is recognized." Jason blinked in surprise. "That sounds good." Kayla didn't look relieved. "Wait," she whispered. "He's not done." The Emperor continued, "But in recognition of this dishonor, Princess Kayla is stripped of her succession. Her seat will be given to the next rightful heir." Jason felt like the ground had been pulled from under him. He turned to Kayla. "Your crown." She stared at the screen. Expression unreadable. Then, softly, "I'm no longer a princess." The screen shut off. Silence falling over the chamber. Jason didn't know what to say. He stepped closer. "I'm sorry." Kayla turned to him slowly, and for the first time. She smiled, really smiled. "I'm not," she said. "I was raised in gold, trained for power. But I never knew choice. Now I do." Jason's voice cracked slightly. "You lost everything." Kayla shook her head. "No, I lost a crown." Then she touched the mark on his wrist. "But I found something more dangerous. Someone who chose me when he didn't have to." Jason took her hand. "I never meant for any of this." And yet, she whispered. "You stayed." There was a long moment of quiet. Then Kayla said, "They'll hunt us. Try to make examples of us." Jason nodded. "Then let's make it worth the chase." Kayla laughed, a real one this time. Warm, strong, free, she walked to the edge of the chamber and opened the command console. "Let's go," she said. "To where?" "Anywhere the stars let us be more than titles and laws." Jason stepped beside her. "So what are we now?" She turned to him with a grin. "We're bonded fugitives," she said, "legally married, illegally royal, as the royal ship." Lifted off into the sky, two marks glowed softly in the darkness. One on her wrist, one on his. Born from a broken translator, bound by choice, and made real by the fire they survived together.